Welcome to the Explainer. Right now, one of the biggest, most audacious energy experiments on the entire planet is happening in India. You see, they're making a massive bet, mixing huge amounts of biofuel, made from things like sugarcane and corn, directly into their gasoline. And this isn't some small-scale trial. No, this is a full-on, high-stakes gamble with potentially enormous payoffs and some pretty serious risks.
I mean, it sounds a little wild when you say it out loud, doesn't it? Can you really run an entire country's worth of cars on sugar and corn? Well, that is precisely what India is trying to do with its incredibly ambitious ethanol blending program. And they're doing it at a speed that is frankly breathtaking. So let's dive in and break down how they're pulling this off and why it matters to all of us.
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the sheer success of how this was rolled out. It's a real national triumph. Then, we'll get into the triple win benefits that really drove the whole thing. After that, we have to talk about the serious roadblocks they're facing. And finally, we'll look at what's next on the road ahead.
So, first things first, let's just take a moment to appreciate the incredible scale of this achievement. You have to understand, this wasn't some slow, plodding policy change. This was a full-blown national mobilization, and it was done with a speed that is just unprecedented.
And here it is. This is the one number that tells you almost the entire story. India set a pretty ambitious goal. Get its petrol to contain 20% ethanol, what's called E20. The original deadline, 2030. Well, they hit that target this year, a full 5 years ahead of schedule. For a government project of this size and complexity, that kind of performance is almost unheard of.
This timeline really puts that acceleration into perspective. Just look back at 2014. The blending rate was tiny, a mere 1.5%. For a while, things were moving, but kind of slowly. And then, boom! It's like someone lit a fire under the whole program. They just blew past their 10% goal in 2022 and then absolutely rocketed towards that 20% target. This wasn't just a gradual increase, it was a planned, strategic explosion of effort and execution.
So, you might be asking, what explains that incredible urgency? Why did India decide to go all in on ethanol like this? Well, the answer is a really powerful triple win scenario. It's a single policy that helps tackle 3 of the country's biggest challenges all at once. So, win number 1, it's all about energy security. India imports something like 85% of its crude oil, which makes its economy incredibly vulnerable to what's happening in global markets. So by swapping out some of that imported petrol for ethanol grown at home, the country has saved an incredible 1.4 lakh crore rupees. To put that in perspective, that's over 16 billion US dollars in foreign currency that stayed right inside India.
And win number 2 is a huge shot in the arm for the rural economy. This program basically created a brand new, reliable market for farm crops. An astonishing 1.18 lakh crore rupees, we're talking about $14 billion, has gone directly into the pockets of farmers for their produce since 2014. It's a total game changer, turning farmers from just food providers into energy providers too.
And the third win? Well, that one's for the planet. Because ethanol burns cleaner than pure gasoline, using it has helped India avoid putting nearly 700 lakh tons, that's 70 million metric tons of CO2 into the atmosphere since 2014. Think about it. That's like taking millions and millions of cars off the road. It's become a really key piece of India's larger climate action plan.
So, when you pull it all together like this, you really see why this is so much more than just a fuel policy. It's a strategic masterstroke. You're strengthening your energy independence, you're pumping money into the rural economy, you're hitting your climate goals, and you're positioning yourself as a world leader on the topic. It's a policy that just keeps on delivering wins.
But of course, a revolution this big is never easy. It's just not that simple. And underneath all that success, there are some really serious and complicated challenges that India now has to figure out.
Okay, the most common debate, and you've probably seen this if you're online, is all about mileage. On one side, you have the official stance. The government and its research bodies say the drop in fuel efficiency with E20 is pretty small, just 3 to 6%, and that you can mostly fix it with a little engine tuning. But then you look at what people are saying, and there's a flood of reports from drivers claiming way bigger drops. Like, I used to get 12 kilometers to the liter, now I'm getting 8. Closing that gap between the official data and what people feel they're experiencing is a major hurdle.
And then there's the other big question everyone has. Is this stuff safe for my engine? Well, the good news here is that if you bought a new vehicle since April 2023, you're all set. It was designed to be E20 compliant right from the factory. For older cars, India's top auto research institutes ran extensive tests and found no major long-term damage. They did note that for some older models, some rubber parts, like gaskets, might need a cheap replacement after a while.
So, we've talked about what's happening at the gas pump. But let's back up. Where is all this ethanol actually coming from? This is where the challenges start to get even more fundamental.
This one number really highlights one of the biggest hidden costs of the program. Historically, India's ethanol has come from sugarcane, but just look at this. To produce a single liter of that ethanol, it can take a staggering 2,860 liters of water. For a country that's already dealing with major water stress, well, that is a very, very serious trade-off to consider.
And that water problem leads us right into the classic food versus fuel dilemma. See, every single acre of land that's used to grow crops for fuel, and every drop of water that goes with it, is land and water that isn't being used to grow food. Now, that's a tough balancing act for any country, but it becomes especially critical for a nation that has over 1 billion people to feed.
So, given these really serious challenges, what's the plan? How is India going to design the next phase of this biofuel revolution? Let's take a look at the road ahead and how they plan to make this whole thing sustainable for the long haul.
Well, first of all, the ambition is definitely not stopping at 20%. The official government roadmap is already aiming for even higher blends. They're planning to move step by step from E25 to E27, with the ultimate goal of hitting E30, that's 30% ethanol, in all petrol by the end of the decade.
So how on earth can they do that without making the water crisis even worse? This chart shows the really clever solution: diversification. The government has been pushing aggressively for a shift towards maize, or corn, which is a much less water-hungry crop. And look at the results. Maize-based ethanol has shot up from basically zero in 2021 to providing 42% of the supply today. This strategic pivot away from only using sugarcane is absolutely crucial for the program's future.
And the vision doesn't even stop there. India is investing heavily in what's called 2G, or second-generation ethanol. This is amazing stuff. It's technology that can turn agricultural waste, like leftover rice straw, into fuel. They're also pushing for flex fuel vehicles that can run on any blend, all the way up to pure ethanol. And the ambition is even taking to the skies, with mandates coming for sustainable aviation fuel.
So, in the end, India's great biofuel gamble is a fascinating story of incredible success, really complex challenges, and some seriously ambitious innovation. The country is betting a huge part of its energy future on fuels that it can grow from its own soil. The ultimate question, the one that really hangs over everything, is this: can it successfully balance the competing needs of its car engines, its environment, and most importantly, its people? The whole world is watching to see what happens next.